All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I like to give all the honor, the praise, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the elect scattered abroad. All right, this is the brother Barazal here with a lesson. The Lord willing is edifying. So the title of this lesson will be, persecution is a trial of our faith, right? Just going into a topic that, of course, several brothers have been going into with, the things that's been going on throughout, Israel. All right, you got, of course, the whole Alizé situation. And then you got, the newest thing with IUIC and the Nation of Islam coming together, which, they've done this in the past. We, got on them, gave them the rebuke, right? Because, that's something that we are not to be doing, right? Being, equally yoked, with unbelievers, right? Men who, are ultimately, worshiping false idols and such, instead of, going into the doctrine, right? Because, IUIC, is big on the law, the law, the law. All right, well, you're not supposed to be, fellowshipping and coming together with, unbelievers, people who don't believe what you believe. They don't even claim to be Israelites. They claim to follow, Islam. Okay. Which that's going back to, of course, idol worship. All right. But you see what's going to happen is, with them doing that, Esau's going to have to, he's going to link us, with these different groups like the Nation of Islam, right? Because they're not going to be like, oh, IUIC and the Nation of Islam. No. All right. Of course, they're going to say, the Hebrew is the, how they say it, the black Hebrew Israelites. Right. So, whatever way, they can, whatever these different groups do, it's all going to be, we're all going to be put to the blame, so Esau can justify, persecuting us. All right. For what these different groups do. And, just because, of course, Esau's the devil. Right. He's going to do whatever he can to, demonize us. All right. He's going to do whatever he can to demonize us, and make it seem like we're out there, being a hate group. All right. We're a cult, things of that nature. Those certain trigger words, but at the end of the day, this is all prophesied to happen. Okay. Being prophets, knowing who we are, coming out and, bringing out the truth day in and day out, man. All right. The truth is out there. All right. You got daily, our people are waking up to who they are. All right. And soon what's going to have to happen, is Esau, he's going to have to come down with that great wrath. And a part of that great wrath is, putting us in jails and prisons, right? Concentration camps. Okay. So this is the book of Matthew 5, and we can start at 10 and say, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my name's sake, or for my sake, Salakia. So yeah, that's what's gonna have to happen, and you even have that happening, not just from Esau, but these different Israelite groups as well, right? They'll, the number one slander, they say against us is, that we're grapists, right? And, things of that nature. Okay. Which, that's slander because, we don't tell anybody to go out and, do that to anybody. Okay. We just bring out, the situation, or, we just bring out the law, the situation of, if that would have happened, it was certain, procedure that would take place, with certain things that would take place. But, they take it like, like we do that. Okay. Which, that's going off. All right. But at the end of the day, this is part of, being a prophet, being hated by the world, even being hated by these different Israelite groups. We choose to, separate ourselves, because they out there, preaching, false doctrine. We don't believe in, being the unity camps. Okay. Because if somebody come out and, they'll bring out Revelation 13 and 16, a lot of these different groups, they believe differently on what it is, and you can't, and it'll be confusion. Okay. And that's the problem. You got these different Israelites more focused on, bringing the community together, so to speak, than, preaching out the gospel, right? And gathering the elect, because that's what this all about, man. All right. We're going to build up the community in the kingdom. We're going to build it up in the kingdom. That's when the restoration, of Israel will take place. But for right now, man, we going through the curses. Okay. We got to ready ourselves for Jacob's trouble. All right. These different prophecies that's coming to pass, but, these Israelites ain't in the right spirit. And a lot of these, Israelites is going to die because, they're not, spiritually preparing themselves how they should, focused on, coming together, the community. You got some who's in it for money grabs, right? Selling Hebrew prayers, selling Bibles, others who's there to, heap disciples unto themselves, things of that nature. Okay. And here we are, at GMS, we preaching, the prophecy. We going into the prophecies, man. All right. The Apostle Tahar, he just made a video, something along the lines of, the title saying, when it comes to prophecy, GMS is numero uno, right? Because, that's what we mainly focused on, man. All right. These other camps, don't really go into prophecy like that, But you see, we focused on what we're supposed to be focused on, man, which is the return of Yahweh Shai, man, and being ready, for the oncoming, judgment of this place, because we're not trying to get caught up in it. All right. Verse 12, rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. And yeah, that's happened time and time again. Okay. A good example is, of course, the apostles in the book of Acts. Okay. They was beaten, put into prison, but at the end of the day, the Lord, delivered them out of it because of, the faith that they had. Okay. And so they was good. All right. And just like back then, having, a lot of those, believers here today, it'll be the same thing will happen. We'll have comfort and stability, right, through this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Okay. Which let's get to Isaiah 33 and 6. And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times and strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasure. Okay. So all these people are bugging out, not knowing what to do. All right. We're going to have the wisdom and knowledge of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, man. Okay. We're going to have the Lord on our side, the faith. All right. And the trial of our faith, it will be being persecuted. All right. Being slandered. All right. But, the same way that, the prophets of old was put into prison. All right. The same way we're going to be put into prisons, such as the prophets of old, we're going to be delivered as well. We have faith on that. OK. There was also martyrs as well amongst the prophets of old, which that's also coming back. OK. But the main, goal, the main objective, of course, is to be, overcome until the end, whatever your lot may be, as a believer, as part of the elect of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. Okay. There's Revelation 2:10. It says, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. You see? And that's it. All right. And you gotta have trust in the Lord, right? You still have people who have trust in in this society, in the president, in Esau's policies, okay? And not trust in Yahweh Bashim Abashai. You got those who have trust in false idols, which that's not going to help you during that day. Okay, you have to have faith in the one and only true power, which is Yahweh, all right, being the Most High, right? And Yahweh Shah being the only begotten Son, the sacrificial lamb, for the nation of Israel, okay? So this is going to be the last precept, and I'm going to end it. So this is Psalms 118:9. It says, it is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in princes. All right. So that's the main thing, whatever trial a brother go through, to trust in the Lord, because, anything is possible. And we believe that, we going to have that power, man. The Lord is going to deliver us, of course, in, supernatural means. Brothers gonna have that spiritual power, man. Whatever the case may be. All right. And you've seen that, the Lord delivered the apostles, through different miracles and such. All right. But while that's gonna happen as well, brothers are gonna receive that spiritual power, man. And we believe that, This is Psalms 118:9. It says, it is better to trust the Lord than to put confidence in princes. All right. But that's pretty much the point. All right. Lord, one that was edifying. So with that, I'd like to give all the honor and praise and glory unto Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Ruach HaKodesh. Shalom.